So this is the new Garmin HRM-200 heart rate strap. So this brings some welcome updates to Garmin's long-standing HRM-Dual, which was a really good heart rate strap. But this improves upon it with more connectivity, a status LED, a much easier way to replace the battery, as well as some new under-the-cover features that actually makes your data more secure. So when it comes to collecting heart rate, I think a lot of us here, at least on this channel, have smartwatches. And while the accuracy of watches is getting better and better, the heart rate from an external heart rate monitor is going to be more accurate, especially with activities like, let's say, weight training, which is kind of a watch's worst nightmare due to all the wrist flexion and arm movement. And I'll actually have plenty of examples of how the HRM-200 compares to both watches as well as other external heart rate straps later in the video, which I think you'll find interesting. Plus, there also could be other factors like, let's say, the color of our skin, hair on our arms, and even tattoos that can have an effect on accuracy. So that's where external heart rate monitors come into play to get the most accurate heart rate from our workouts. Now, one really quick note before we get into the nitty-gritty details of the HRM-200 is that this is just the start of an extremely hot week of new sports stuff coming out. So if you want to get notified of all that new fun stuff, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, but also make sure to turn on that notification bell to get a little when those videos drop. So the HRM-200 is replacing their long-standing HRM-Dual, and other than new name, it also has some other nice additions. So just like before, this has a modular design with a separate pod and then a separate strap, which you can actually just go ahead and toss in the washer if you like after your workout. And there's also two different sizes of the strap depending on the size of your chest. And along with that, the HRM-200 also has a new indicator light up front on the pod, along with a status and pairing button, which makes it just a little bit more convenient to use. And in terms of what kinds of activities that you can track with this, so basically everything except for swimming. It still has a 3 ATM water resistance rating, so you can still do the sweatiest of workouts with it and won't have a problem, but it doesn't have onboard storage for heart rate data, which is required for swimming. And the reason for this, by the way, is that wireless signals don't travel well, if at all, through the water. So a heart rate strap needs to be able to store heart rate data on the strap itself during your swim, which can then be synced with your watch after your workout. And I've actually got a lot more details in the previous Garmin heart rate strap video about how that works. I'll have that video linked down in the description below. And then when it comes to connectivity, so it has 3 Bluetooth connections along with unlimited ANT+ connections, but it also has a new secure Bluetooth type that you can use to keep your data more secure. But in regards to what kinds of devices that you can use with it, it can pair to basically anything out there, whether that's your watch, your bike computer, and even your iPad, computer, or Apple TV. Almost all devices, regardless of the manufacturer, use either Bluetooth or ANT+, so this should work with pretty much nearly anything out there. So having 3 Bluetooth connections allows you to have this paired with multiple Bluetooth devices all at once. So you could have this paired to your Peloton bike, but at the same time, you could also pair it to your watch and or bike computer, and then you could also even pair it with your Strava app if you'd like, all at the same time. And then for those of you riding on, let's say, something like Zwift, you could have this paired with your Apple TV or iPad, and then again have it paired with your watch and or bike computer. Basically, those 3 Bluetooth connections should allow you tons of flexibility regardless of whatever device you're trying to set up. Now, something new with the HRM-200 though is a new secure Bluetooth connection type that they're introducing, which creates a secure connection with compatible devices where your data is encrypted and authenticated. And the reason they're actually introducing this connection type, it has a lot to do with the new EU regulation that's going into effect later this year, which has a lot to do with having better privacy with personal data, like your health data. So now there's going to be 2 different ways of pairing up your HRM-200 with your particular device. So just like pretty much any heart rate strap before, all you have to do is attach the pod to the HRM-200, put it on, which should wake it up since it'll detect that it's on your skin. But if for some reason it doesn't necessarily wake up for some reason, all you have to do is just single press the button. And then you'll know that it's active with the indicator light on the front, which will kind of flash showing that it's awake. And at that point, it's broadcasting the standard ANT+ and Bluetooth signals that all these sensors have had before, and then just go ahead and add it to your device. However, if you want to create a secure connection, once it's awake, you can switch to a secure connection type by just double pressing the button, which will turn the flashing light from 3 pulses, which indicates an open connection, to 2 pulses, which indicates a secure connection. And then from there, you'll long press the button for 4 seconds to enter secure connection pairing mode. But just note that you do have to long press the button to enter the secure pairing mode. If not, you'll still be pairing with the open Bluetooth connection method. And then from there, if you have a compatible device that supports these secure connections, when you enter the pairing mode, it'll show up just like before, but once you actually pair it, it'll display that it's the secure connection. So with this method, this supports the authentication where you do have to do a manual pairing process to have the secure connection. Now, alternatively, if you have a device that supports both open and secure connections, if you have it paired using an open connection, you'll also see that indicated with the paired device as well. Now, not all Garmin devices that are going to be supporting these secure connections have actually gotten the software update yet to support this. So that's why with the Epix Pro that I just showed in that example, I was actually running beta software on that, whereas the Phoenix 8 that I was running, that didn't have the update quite yet. But I anticipate that the software should be updated by the time this comes out. But when it comes to the necessity of this new secure connection type, well, I think that's going to be totally up to you, of course, depending on your desire of keeping your heart rate data private. But I think what Garmin's really trying to do here is providing that level of privacy to make sure that this device is going to be compliant with those new EU regulations that are going to be going into effect. Now, another thing new with the HRM-200 versus the HRM-Dual is that you can also pair this with the Garmin Connect app, when you'll also use the pairing button to connect it with the app. And this is where you can change some settings, check the battery status, as well as perform firmware updates. And then when it comes to comfort and wearability, so it uses a hook and loop closure to attach it, and the material is nice and soft and smooth as skin, and has plenty of grip on the inside, which keeps it from slipping down. Now, after your workout, what's nice about this removable pod is that you can just detach the pod and then toss the strap into a washing machine if you'd like, but do make sure to detach the pod, and also don't toss the strap in the dryer after you wash it. Let it air dry. But honestly, I'm usually on my way to the shower after workout, and I usually just rinse my heart rate straps off in the sink for a few seconds and then just toss them on my towel rack to dry. That's what I've been doing for years on all my straps, and they work and smell just fine. Now, if you do happen to leave your pod on after your workout and don't detach it, what's kind of nice is that if it's not detecting heart rate, motion, or if it doesn't detect that it's connected to another device, it will go to sleep after around 2 to 5 minutes to save on battery. And speaking of battery life, so they say that this can last up to a year, and that's with the assumption of about an hour of use per day. Now, with the LEDs on the front of the device, so when you first go to start your workout, these will stay active for around 2 minutes while it connects to your device, and then after that, the LEDs will actually go to sleep to save on battery. But you actually can go ahead and enable an always-on LED mode in the settings within Garmin Connect, so these will stay active all the time while it's being used. And if you do choose to use that always-on LED mode, that will drop the battery life down to around 257 days. Literally, that's actually the exact number of days that they gave me. And the LEDs on the front also can give a general indication of battery life, where if it's flashing green, that means it's good to go. If it's orange, that means it's low. And then if it's red, that means it's critical. Now, when the battery does run low or runs out, to replace it, this is vastly improved from the previous HRM-Dual, which required a small screwdriver. So with the HRM-200, so it has this compartment on the back that unscrews, and they actually have a built-in tool right there on the strap itself that inserts into the door, and all you'll do is rotate it counterclockwise by about 90 degrees, and then you can get to the battery, which is a very common CR2032 battery. The only thing I'd say though is that it did take a little bit more force than I was kind of expecting to get it to initially budge loose, but other than that, I like this new way of replacing the battery, which is much better than HRM-Dual. Another thing with that previous HRM-Dual is that you had to be pretty careful with the O-ring to make sure that it was situated just right, and also make sure that you got the screws tightened down just enough to get a proper seal, but not too much either. This new compartment on the HRM-200 is certainly a huge improvement. Okay, so now let's get into accuracy. So here's an extremely varied indoor bike ride that I did with all sorts of stuff tossed in here, just to see how responsive the HRM-200 would be. And this is compared to a Polar H10 strap, a Polar Verity Sense optical heart rate monitor, as well as an Apple Watch Ultra. Now, from a high level, there's literally nothing to complain about with any of them, but let's take a really close look at some of the quick changes in heart rate just to see how each of them react. So at the beginning, we can see just a little bit of latency from the Apple Watch Ultra right here that's in green, and then a little bit right here from both the Apple Watch Ultra as well as the optical arm-based heart rate monitor. But that's kind of be expected though, since those are optical heart rate sensors, which can have an ever so slight delay and not the near instant results that you can get with the ECG, like what's found on the chest straps. Overall, it's super minor, at least with this kind of workout, but it is going to be more interesting to see these differences with high intensity interval training as well as weight training, which we'll get to in just one second. Looking at the middle portion of the workout, so that's basically identical from all of them. Maybe a little bit of a blip here or there, but nothing to be concerned about. And then for these intervals at the end, again, just a tiny bit of latency from the Apple Watch Ultra, but again, incredibly minor and totally to be expected from optical heart rate sensor on the wrist, which is farther away from your heart. Now, for those of you who use the SkiErg machine, so this is something that I've been recently incorporating into my training. So this can be a challenging kind of activity for a wrist-based optical heart rate sensor where there's a lot of arm movement as well as a lot of gripping onto the handles. And as we can see from this workout here, the Phoenix E had some troubles, especially on this third set. And then on this workout, the Apple Watch Ultra actually had some significant troubles tracking the start of the workout. But after that, it did get back in line. But again, though, it is kind of interesting to see that slight latency that can happen for watches. But for the HRM-200, can't really complain at all, and it stayed put and got just as accurate results as the Polar H10. And then moving on to weight training. So this is basically the number one reason of why you need an external heart rate monitor versus a watch. So here's a session compared to the Polar H10, and this is extremely close as you can see, but there were just a couple spots I wanted to highlight. Like at the beginning, there's about a 20-second period right here where the H10 actually didn't track my heart rate, which is why you see that flat line. And I did make sure to wet the straps before starting so they're getting a good signal. And then right here are these bicep curls. So on one set, the HRM-200 did have a little bit of a blip where it read a few beats per minute lower than the H10. Both of those blips from either of the chest heart rate straps were obviously super minor in the whole scheme of things, and they still produce very similar and meaningful results. Oh, and then one last thing I wanted to mention is that the HRM-200 could also be used to get on-demand HRV readings, like if you're using apps like Elite HRV. And yeah, the HRM-200 is a nice little update to the HRM-Dual for just $10 more, where this runs $80 and the HRM-Dual was $70 when that was new. I like the new indicator light, the pairing button's also nice, and I also really like the new way of replacing the battery, which is much more convenient. Now, if you already own an HRM-Dual and it's still working for you, I don't necessarily think it's worth upgrading to the HRM-200 unless you really want a secure connection, but this will be a nice upgrade if your HRM-Dual ever wears out. And yeah, that's the new HRM-200 from Garmin, and if you have any questions about it that I didn't cover in this video, feel free to drop those down in the comment section down below. And again, definitely subscribe to the channel for plenty more sports tech goodness that's coming right around the corner. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.